Dear friends, splendid news are coming from United Kingdom. Namely, distinguished professor John Sidney Oxford has performed experiments with the negative and positive ions and their effects to the viruses. Professor Oxford is one of the leading world experts in viruses. He got his PhD at the University of Sheffield about the viruses. For 5 decades, he's been dealing with different types of viruses, from Spanish influenza 1918, Ebola, HIV, AIDS, birds flu, pigs flu, and so on. So he realized how important it is to stop them. Also, he's been teaching at Queen Mary's School of Medicine, University of London, and he authored some major textbooks on viruses. So now, this expert has been using air ionizers during his experiments. It's very important to distinguish his work and work of number of institutes around the world who don't have good intentions. Namely, they've been paid by the military and industrial complex to develop and modify viruses, to patent them, to use them as the potential biological weaponry, and also to develop the vaccines. Unlike them, Professor Oxford wants to help humanity. During his experiment, in the wake of what is now known as the corona pandemic, he was performing his experiment back in November of 2019. In the confined space of the box, dimensions 1 by 1 by 1 cubic meter, he had presence of viruses and air ionizer generating negative and positive ions. The concentration of negative ions was 50,000 negative ions per cubic centimeter. He has noticed that all viruses were dissolved instantly, and in the process he describes what was happening. Namely, when you have the virus in the air and then negative and positive ions, those negative and positive ions, they stick to the surface of the virus. Of course, virus consists of 2 elements, RNA or DNA as a core and a protein around it. Well, those negative and positive ions are coming to those sticks, the proteins, forming OH, oxygen and hydrogen, highly oxidized. And then OH is pulling hydrogen from proteins, dissolving the proteins. Without the proteins, the virus is dead. As a matter of fact, the viruses, if they are in the air, we can consider them not dead or alive. At the moment they get to our human bodies, they are becoming very, very alive. But while still in the air, negative ions, removing protein, without it, they are dead forever. The good thing is, you didn't need to wait 5 or 10 minutes, or 2 or 3 hours to kill those viruses. It was happening immediately, instantly. His conclusion high concentration of 50,000 negative ions kill 100% of viruses instantly.
Here in Great Britain is the University of London. A new beneficial experiment into plasma cluster ions was run by the company Retroscreen Virology Limited at this university. Directing the experiment was the International Authority in Virus Research, Dr. John Oxford.
I'm John Oxford. I'm Professor of Virology at the Queen Mary School of Medicine, the University of London, and Scientific Director of Retroscreen Virology Limited. Well, now we are repeating the experiments with virus potential inactivation, and we're using a more powerful ionizer. This emits 50,000 ions per centimetre cubed, and we're hoping to achieve even more inactivation of virus.
The experiment is carried out using a 1-meter cubed box. First, virus solution is sprayed from the top surface of the box. Within the box, an ion generator is producing plasma cluster ions. The suspended viruses are gathered at fixed intervals into a solution by a trumpet-shaped collection device. On the right is a virus solution affected by the ions. On the left is a virus solution not affected by the ions. Each virus is introduced to MDCK cells and the response awaited. Here is the mechanism by which the plasma cluster ion degrades and removes the viruses. The ion generator produces positive and negative ions from air moisture through plasma electrical discharge. In the same way as ions existing in nature, plasma cluster ions are very stable when included in water molecules, and high concentration is possible in our living spaces. When two ions stick to the surface of a virus, they transform into a highly oxidizing OH radical and draw out the hydrogen from the protein of the spike-shaped virus. OH radicals exert the strongest attractive force on hydrogen out of all the oxides. Protein from which hydrogen has been taken is degraded, and the OH radical returns to water. This sequence is performed in an instant, completely removing the virus. 3 days after introducing the virus into the cell, the reaction is analyzed under a microscope. The cells introduced to the virus not exposed to the ions gradually degrade. Whereas the cells introduced to the virus exposed to the ions exhibit almost no change and maintain a normal condition. This proves that the virus is removed by plasma cluster ions. This kind of experiment is repeated many times over in order to verify the virus removal efficiency. The result verified is that high concentration plasma cluster ions can remove 99% of the virus in a 1-meter cubed space.
Now, with that degree of inactivation, I think one can begin to think clearly about how to apply this sort of technology in practice, in doctor surgeries, in waiting rooms, in people's homes, and that sort of application pleases me quite a lot. These ions inactivate or react with the surface of the virus and cause change on the surface of viruses and thereby help destroy the virus. That's quite a good method of action. And so, given all that, this sort of technology, I think, will give us some reassurance that we'd have a piece of kit, as it were, that could be used not only against viruses we know about, but viruses that could appear in the future.